question 3 on the survey. So this was now kind of opening it up for, the public opinion, letting them lay down their own answers here. So the question was to do with basically saying that they may not be fully aware of the reasons behind the removal of the stories, but they relate to, obviously, as we know, outdated racial stereotypes that are hurtful to people from these parts of the world or with that heritage. So then, knowing that information now, they're equipped with that now, is there a case, as we've already kind of discussed a little bit about, is there a case that we should not be removing literature from history in order to ensure that we can learn from it? So I gave the public a little bit of an example, and that was more on the sense of, imagine that you're a parent or a teacher and that those stories or that literature is no longer available. So they, of course, they can still talk about it, but especially if we're talking like younger children, sometimes it's easier to show in pictures as it was, in more kind of what we would say intelligible conversation or whatever. But yeah, so then I went along the lines of like, how would you, in the example was more like, how would you help to explain to a younger person the certain stories were written in a time when people were less aware or treated people much differently? So is removing these stories, and this is another kind of side chain really. So this is at the hands of the Doctors' Use Company and their choices. So this is just a little bit devil's advocate again, but this is removing these stories an act of trying to clean up the company image and forgetting about their past association with racist stereotypes? Then I let them have, I said, feel free to use those examples or them to, put in their own experience in the comments. So I'm going to go to the comments first, and then I'm going to come back to you guys on that. So hold your thoughts, because I can see Juanita's raring to go on this. So and Milo as well. So yeah, so the responses to that kind of, we had some detailed, some not so detailed, some, in my opinion, quite ridiculous comments. So I don't know where these people came from. I don't think that I associate them with them in real life. So someone said, with the best will in the world, it is historical and can be explained as such. So I don't know if they took the age grouping of people on that so much, but I think they were just generalizing that it can be explained whether there's those stories there or not. Someone strangely put, no one cares. Yeah, okay. I'm sure your mother loves you very much. Yeah. So, and then we had better to keep them published, but explain to children and young people when reading them what stereotypes are and why the stereotypes are wrong. So I think that's a pretty sensible kind of comment. Then we had a really, really detailed comment here. I do like when we get some of the detailed ones. So it was, cancelling the likes of Doctors' Use because there are outdated racial stereotypes included is counterproductive. We should use the negative stereotypes that were commonplace in a different era to either highlight how we've improved in our intolerance of different races, cultures, etc., and celebrate progress, or use it to examine where we could still improve. Some of the most important works of literature reflect intolerances, but also contribute significantly in other ways. To simply cancel rather than discuss, cancel or remove, rather than discuss, is to bite off one's nose to spite one's face. So I thought that was a very, very, very good detailed comment.
Yeah, that was basically my comment. I just didn't, wanted to put it in there. No, I'm joking. He's
taking all the credit for that one now. Yeah,
that's not true. But if I had written a comment, it'd probably be very similar to that, because I absolutely agree with that statement.
When I was reading it, actually, the first time it popped up, and I was like, well, that could be something that Milo could have said. But
the only way, the reason how you would know it was me is it would be full of grammatical errors and spelling errors. That's how you know it's for me.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. and then finally on that, just a short comment on that was just, I think as long as you're aware of the context and that some of the attitudes are outdated, then it's fine. So yeah, I'm going to bounce that back to you two. We've kind of touched on it a little bit already, because that question about the educating people, but I'm happy to kind of hear, I suppose, your responses to some of those public responses, really.
Absolutely. I mentioned this earlier. It's opportunities to talk about it and what those stereotypes are, and to ask children. And of course, the more diverse the group of children, the more the range of responses, right? How the language makes them feel, how would they change it? What about it they'd want to change? And for me, it's like, yes, there are stereotypes, and yes, we can point out what the stereotypes are. I think it's more important to take an inquiring approach to it, and to find out from children what they see and how they hear it and how they perceive it. And more importantly, how that makes them feel about themselves. Because the root of all of this, and for me, whatever it is, whether it's, an image, or whether it's a song, or God knows, there are messages in it. And those messages should be affirming what is best about us as human beings, and should be affirming diversity, and should be affirming ethics, and all of those things. And along with that, children need to hear themselves and see themselves in what they read and what they watch. And so if a view, or if something is being presented that relates to them that is wrong, we need to find out what they feel. And
looking at kind of representation, kind of, as wider representation of people, and young people, obviously, because they're very, they see that, like as you said, they see that content. They're more likely to be the ones that are going to bring up something and say, we as adults, regardless of where we're from, we might watch something and think, no, that seems a bit off or whatever, but we don't always highlight it. Whereas kids, only in my own limited experience, but kids often tend to be the ones that will ask questions that you might not necessarily have thought of initially. Like, as you just said, if there's underrepresentation of a certain culture or background, and a kid's watching that program and they go, oh, look, Daddy, that person, they don't look like me. Like, why's that? And it just opens up that initial question of like, oh yeah, why is it just a bunch of white kids on there or whatever, or if it was somewhere else in a
sorry, Kev,
yeah.
I just remembered something, and sorry. Further to that, so it's not just representation; it is addressing racism directly, right? And what came to mind was a conversation that we were. It was a project we were working on, a bunch of students in Sudan, which is where I was teaching last, and the project was basically the learners had to choose which UN Sustainable Development Goal they cared about and wanted to respond to creatively. So one of them was it was about water and sanitation. One was focusing on racism. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing that I want to mention. I had, in our year group, there were about 30 learners. We asked, there were two teachers, two classes. We asked the learners to choose whichever issue they wanted to focus on. We had no control over it. We said, these are all the UN Sustainable Development Goals. What do you care about? Which topic came up in most of the groups? Which topic? Racism. Racism came up. And my colleague and I were like, whoa, what's going on here? I hope we're not influencing them. Because you don't want to do that, right? No, we weren't. And what they came up with were raps and songs and posters, and there were a bunch of things. What I wanted to mention was this: one group created something that another group responded to, I stood there watching these two groups having this conversation. I knew what the lyrics were of. I mean, I was listening to it as the other group was listening to it, and I could hear, okay, there's some there's some stuff here that's a bit. One of the children from the other group said, "That's racist." Just like that, and the child who created it was like, what do you mean? And the other guy was, that what you just said there, that's racist. It makes me feel like blah 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 blah.
That's
and
great conversation for kids that they're in.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I'm really impressed with kids of that age having that conversation in that way.
And I think adults in a wider scale of things actually could probably take
a lesson
something
from that,
huge about that. Yeah, absolutely.
This is why I wanted to mention it, because it's not just representation. It is actually dissecting it and responding to it in a way that, I mean, the child who responded didn't say, hey, you're being racist, blah, blah, blah. He said, that's racist. It makes me feel like this. And the person who'd written it then sat with the group and they re-examined it. They re-examined it. It was a discussion. And, blew my mind. One of those moments that was just, oh, this is why I love teaching. because children are just so, they're ready. It's not to say that there's no space to make mistakes. It's not to say that there's no space to have wrong ideas or to be offensive. It's not to say that, because we do and we're human and that happens. Yet can we approach it honestly, respectfully? Can we receive the feedback? Can we make the changes? And I feel that by these books and whichever other books and whichever songs and whichever whatever it is, if we can, like our children, respond to it and go, okay, that's racist and that makes me feel like that and I'd want to do this, then we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had not exactly the same as that, but in certain circumstances, I've had it with uncles before, that have got outdated views or opinions, and I have blatantly, and the thing that's different with adults in certain areas sometimes is when you actually do call them out on it, they're ironically they end up being more shocked, because I've said to people, I've said, but no, that's wrong. You're being racist. Like the words you're using there aren't right, but they don't like it because it's like, everything that they knew or they for some strange reason think is right, like being told now at a certain age, 55, 60 or whatever. I'm not saying that's that age group, but I'm just going my own reflective experiences with certain adults that are within my own, family unit. When I've told them that, they're being told, by someone a lot younger than them, obviously, that their view is outdated and they need to change, a little bit of the way that they're speaking. And often, unfortunately, they don't respond in the way that you would, how you use in your example of the children that go, oh, okay, let's work together to see how we can change this. They still have this kind of entrenched view that's like quite difficult to shift. And I think that's one of the things I think going forward, a lot of kids nowadays as well, I think my niece is 11 and all her kind of age group of people, their conversations are, they will tell people they're wrong. And if that's within their same grouping of people, and largely in the main, they will accept that. And like you say, they will work to being progressive with it more so. But the difficulty, I think, is within not just all older people, because there's younger people that are influenced by these older people that have got these outdated opinions as well. But it's quite difficult to sometimes shift, even when you are directly calling them out, because they then become protective. Strange, protective, because they know they're wrong. Ultimately, they know that what they're saying is wrong, but they've been enabled at some point in the past, and they've taken that into their future, which I think that is probably, from my own personal experience, I think that is probably one of the most difficult things to kind of make progress in. But I don't know, Milo, what would your kind of comments be on regarding the question?
Clearly, you read my comment, so I think I'm around there. I mean, I to be honest, I am against the no longer publishing the books, and not because of any reason other than I think by them no longer publishing the books, as time goes on, fewer and fewer copies will exist. It'll be less likely to be read and less likely to be discussed. And I think in the same way, the Mark Twain books that I mentioned previously, if they're not getting published, in all these things that might have these comments, by no longer putting them out in the world, it's reducing the possibility that they'll be discussed. I mean, ignoring something doesn't make it go away. It just brushes it under the carpet a little bit. Let's move on to a question for you, Juanita.
Okay.
So back to your artistic endeavors. What has been one of your biggest challenges as an artist?
So I think I've talked about this a bit already. And my biggest challenge has been sharing my art and accepting myself as an artist. and essentially, that's it. And there are some specific reasons for that. One being, I'm in Belfast, so I'm not in South Africa. I'm not in the community that I grew up in, and that I experienced as being very restrictive. So for me, even though I was always writing and creating art, to be honest, I think I went more into writing because it was easier to shove away into books and in boxes that nobody would notice, because there wasn't a space for it to be seen for a long time. So for me, the challenge, I guess, was seeing that what I create has some value to others, and overcome my own anxieties and fears about being seen and heard, and also the potential hurt it can cause my family in South Africa, specifically my parents, who are not comfortable about me, some of my work. I mean, the stuff that I shared already, they'd be comfortable with that. Why wouldn't they be? It's rain, right?
Do you find having the fact that, like you say, that you've now kind of been more able to have that opportunity to kind of express your creativity for those channels, that initially, like you say, it was kind of difficult to kind of say, oh, I'm an artist, or, oh, I'm doing this or whatever, because it was actually kind of quite overwhelming that you've now got this opportunity to put it out there, as it were, and actually tell people your story and your creative, parts.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So my art, I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. She's a poet, and she was saying that we were talking about people stepping into the shoes of other people when they write or when they create, and that's not my art. My art is me. It's like if you're seeing me in it, and that's terrifying, and I think it was easier to not tell people about it because I wasn't ready for people to see it. No, and I'll tell you why I wasn't ready for people to see it. Because I wasn't ready to see it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, and it's interesting because it is harder to share your art when it's so personal, like that. And because I think, as an actor, right, we consider ourselves artists, but we're not ourselves when we're showing, when we're sharing our art, right? We're a character, we're somebody else.
Yeah, we're pretending, as it were.
Exactly,
in a sense,
exactly. Versus, your poetry and your like that kind of stuff. That is literally you out there for people to comment on and respond to. So that makes perfect sense.
Right, we're gonna make this. We're gonna make this really fun now, and I know that you're gonna love this next question that we've got. Which is, I'm gonna ask this one. Sorry, Mike. I'm gonna take this one. So this is, what is your favorite cheese?
Right. So you know how some people in certain cultures, like rice is their staple diet, right? I'll stop there. That's it. That's a good enough example. So cheese is I eat cheese every day. My favorite cheese is because I'm like a cheese fiend. It's like it's every day. It's my staple. I can list a few.
What would you say is one of your? Yeah, what would you say is one of your favorite? If you've got one favorite, you might have to kind of coin it down to 2 or 3 or whatever. But what would you say is one of your favorite?
See, I could just be made very, very happy, like extremely happy, with some extra mature British cheddar.
Wow, you live in the right place for that, then.
Yeah, you can not be anywhere else.
Yeah. I joke about that in living here. It's like, which type of cheddar shall I have today? Shall I have the aged cheddar, or the British cheddar, or the red cheddar?
Oh yeah, bit of red Leicester.
Red Leicester, exactly. Yeah. So that's funny. That's awesome.
So are there any other cheeses? Because obviously you said that you like the extra mature British cheddar.
Oh yeah, I love Red Leicester. I love Brie. I love Camembert. I love stinky blue cheese.
I reckon that you literally are. We're not going to get a favourite out of you because it's just you're like cheese. But you said something about because you worked in Sudan. So did you ever? Was it ever difficult to get hold of? Because I don't know what the cheese culture is like in Sudan. I've never been there. So
yeah, actually, there's quite a lot of. They have these cheese straws. I tried them. There's a lot of local cheese, right? Which
do you mean like cheese strings?
Yeah.
Do you mean like cheese strings or actual cheese straw, like the savoury cheese straw things?
No, I mean like actual strings of cheese.
Okay, so yeah, I'm with you.
But when I lived in Sudan, my staple cheese consumption would be those little triangular. What do you call them?
Oh, the dairy. I think they are dairy. I think we do. There's like the Laughing Cow do. They're kind of basically. I don't know if you know, Milo. The UK seems to have this, even though they obviously make a lot of cheeses, they have this real association. A bit like how I always talk about, kind of like in America, like a lot of people love what I would call plastic cheese, like the cheese squares.
I call it fake cheese. Yes.
Fake cheese.
Yeah. Yes, I know.
Yeah. Plastic cheese, whatever, just like you could chuck it on the side for a month and nothing would have touched it. It would have just been there and it looked the same.
It's so embarrassing that's like American cheese. And you're like, really? So like the cheese named after our country is like fake cheese.
Not like a bit of Monterey Jack.
Exactly. There's nothing.
It's like fake cheese.
Fake cheese. There you go. American cheese.
Yeah. But now it's like that's quite a UK staple, shockingly as well. I think the whole fast food element probably plays a part in that, to be fair. But no, so Dairy cheese triangles, which is what Juanita could only get whilst in Sudan, is basically kind of like almost like a really soft processed cheese that basically melts before you even look at it.
Oh, okay.
So their marketing strategy is great because it's like, oh, here's a box of cheese, open it up. Oh, it's not there. It's it's almost evaporated.
Melts in your hand.
Yeah, and it's in these little foil, kind of peely foil things. I don't know if there's anything similar like that.
Are those really
America.
Small, like little
absolute
square?
tiny.
Yes,
tiny, really
I know what
salty
you're talking about.
kind of.
Yes, I have had that.
I don't think they're even cheese, to be honest. I think they're just a little block of very soft. Yeah.
Cheese flavored product. Yes. I know what you're talking about.
Cheese flavored.
It goes well on crackers, though. I will give you that. Like they go really well with like little crackers and stuff. I think you just kind of take it out of the wrapper, squeeze it on your little cracker, and eat it.
Yeah, I think like on a like a little Ritz or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
something like that. I think.
Yeah, something like whack that on and just more salt. Just.
So I should tell you about my cheese crackers. They're just slices of cheese.
There's no cracker.
Just an actual cheese wedge. Just
take the fake cheese and put it on a piece of cheddar, and the cheddar is your cracker, and then the fake cheese is the cheese. Perfect.
A stacker. Yeah.
Cheese stacker.
Or cheese slider, maybe even. Just pure cheese. But because I know Milo likes. Talking about cheese-based products, just to open it a tiny bit more. I know Milo loves these kind of like cheese square things, which in the UK they're called cheeselets. And I might be doing cardinal sin here because I know that Cheez-It is
Cheez-It crackers. Yes.
Yeah. Have
I talked about Cheez-It crackers with you before? Is that
no, but I've seen you either with a box or something like kind of.
It's true. Yeah.
And I know that you're a big fan.
I am.
But we do something similar here called cheeselets.
They're not the same.
That's what I was going to say. I might have been cardinal sin. I might have been. He's like, no.
There can be only
do
one.
Do not shit on me.
Yeah, exactly. There can be only one Cheez-It cracker. Everything else is cheap imitation. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I knew that was going to be the response. But,
it's funny. Yeah. Anytime anybody comes and visits me from the US, they are required to bring a box in them. For my birthday last year, my girlfriend ordered a giant box full of little bags of Cheez-It crackers, like that lasted for half the year. So
I thought you were going to say like 2 weeks because you just
it easily could have. I had to put the box in the closet so I wouldn't see it because I definitely would have kept
locked away and just kind of like, okay, I'm bringing out the Cheez-It now. But
delicious. I should be a spokesman for Cheez-It crackers. I talk about them so much. They should pay me.
I reckon you could, get the show to sponsor us.
Yeah, there we go.
We've said the word enough now. I think that's...
Yeah. Welcome to Rip It Up, sponsored by Cheez-It Crackers. All right. So
we've nailed it.
Yeah. So let's get back on track. What is question 4 on the public questionnaire?
Yeah. Kev? So, indeed. Our fourth, and it was the final question on the survey that we asked the public. So this was now kind of leading off to kind of more the creative area, which we've kind of started to touch on a little bit. So I asked the public here, which was so in the creative world, how has it now become quite difficult to express anything without offending someone or something? So, in that wider scale, again, relates to the cancel culture. Also comes back round just and knits in with creativity quite well. So my example, just to to let them kind of have a little opener, was that, so of course any racial stereotyping is unacceptable, but looking at the wider picture, does this mean that today we're more unable to create something that by the time it makes, say, the final cut, it's been stripped of any personality, humor, satire, and so on, because we're kind of being so conscious of what we're writing, we're not actually writing what is truly there, and especially if we're then publishing it and it's going out to a huge audience. So I furthered on that and said, we aren't talking anything that's intentionally, really offensive and provocative. But as we evolve within the world of cancel culture, are we eventually going to kind of suppress creativity to a point where everything ends up kind of replicated and looks the same, or is kind of like sanitized or sterile? So by design, are we in some ways slowly destroying creativity? So then I stress the point that this isn't to enable people who intend to spread hate, It's more focusing on the wider evolution of creativity. And I let them put in their comments on that. So we did have, again, several comments, and some were a little surprising when I read them. I think there was just one person in there that, like you say, in that kind of cancel culture, trolling kind of nature, I think somebody else who just went on and decided that they were going to put something a bit stupid. But I'll read it, and we'll think of them. So somebody put, I fail to understand how other people can set themselves up as judges as to what other people may find perfectly acceptable. Who judges the judges? It took me a while to process. I think they're basically saying, like, can people say, oh, that's bad for some on behalf of somebody else? I think that's what they're kind of getting at. It's like, you're doing it. Sometimes you get people online and they're saying, you can't say that, that's bad, that's wrong, which is right in the calling out sense. But sometimes are they doing that on behalf of others to be kind of what we would term as, say, woke or whatever, I suppose would be the kind of, that's usually the insult or whatever that's used by trollers and things like that. Would say, are you being woke in that sense because you're maybe trying to speak on someone else's behalf, when their angle might actually be very different to that, and they're just kind of, they're being offended for somebody rather than the actual individual. So that's their one. Then we got somebody said, yes, I think it does kill creativity when there is a fear of being cancelled. I've likened it before to the Gestapo, so that if you put a foot wrong, you might disappear. So you walk on eggshells all the time just in case. Cancel culture also doesn't seem to accept apologies, like we touched on earlier on. And I think people need the space and freedom to make errors, apologies, and learn, and then be able to move on from them. I thought that was quite a good reference point there on that one. Then somebody else put, if cancel culture is supported by the majority, I think it'll stifle creativity. But then he said, I don't have a good example or any advice though. But that was their pure opinion, was just they think that if cancel culture is supported by the majority, I think it'll stifle creativity. So it's probably a fair point. Then somebody puts, yes, wokies need to get a grip. Not really a helpful comment, not very constructive, but there you go. It's a public response, so we have to accept we're going to get certain comments from people. And then we've got quite a detailed one here. So someone says, frankly, I do not believe that even racial stereotyping should be out of bounds for comedy. Stereotyping, even if unfair, lends itself to the logical structure of many good jokes. And unfortunately, there's an inevitable byproduct that people may be offended. That doesn't mean it's okay to purposely target it and bully somebody, but if a joke is good, it's demonstrably good, whether it's offensive or not. What's more, it's possible to be offended by literally anything. I'd rather risk causing offense than be so terrified of saying the wrong thing that I say nothing at all. Then they go on to give an example personal to themselves. They said, being ginger, I can honestly say I've never been offended by a ginger joke. My favorite was, and they said, Adam had use for a frisbee, he just needed a boomerang.
Okay.
So that was their one on that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get the joke.
and I don't think the commentator was particularly offended about it. They're like, oh, that's the best you've got, kind of, other than the usual kind of, oh look, ginger guy or whatever, So, and then the last one on there that we had was, they said, I think if you want to create something, it is more difficult to publish it. But at the end of the day, in the era we live in, someone won't like it and someone may take offense. As long as you know you didn't intend to upset anyone, then I guess you can or you should feel all right about it. So I think that's just kind of, using that kind of context element again, that as long as you personally know that you're not going out there to offend somebody, I can see we can't suppress creativity, but we do need to have a place where we're learning from the things that we say. So I think we have got, like you said before, we've got to be reflective. We've got to be representing other people and not just ignoring them. And then also, like you said before, also directly calling out racism. So the question doesn't kind of aim to enable anyone that's kind of spread, hate, but I think it's more talking about the overarching, kind of suppression of creativity as a whole. So yeah, I want to take you guys' opinions on that one.
So I think that on the flip side of things, I was thinking about the many artists, many activists who spoke out against things through art, and in many countries still today, and don't make it back home. Yeah, because that's they live in military states, and I spent some time living in one, and I spent some time living in the Philippines, which wasn't a military state when I lived there, yet is fast has become one in terms of freedom of expression. And on the flip side, there's what is popular, or what is acceptable, or what is the wave, the tide, and then there's the truth, and the truth is the truth. And art has always been, and artists have always, for me, I guess, I see it as that responsibility to speak that in the various ways that it is spoken. And so, on this extreme of would cancel culture kill creativity? One of the things that came to mind with one of the comments was Trevor Noah. I just thought of Trevor Noah, and I thought of a bunch of other South African comedians who I love and who will completely take the piss out of themselves, because that's what they do. And oh yeah, it's full of stereotypes. Oh yeah, it is very much so. It's their own. So it's standing in my own stereotype, or in my own context, and laughing at it, and it's different from it's different when you're doing that to somebody else, and a lot of South African comedians have done this over the years with racial topics. And I promise you, I've sat in crowds where I feel that these guys standing up there saying these things that just, you can't not laugh, and then your face hurts. And it's so true. And it's all part of the calling the racism and changing the narrative. And in between, we surely can and need to laugh at ourselves and accept that we've been wrong and racist about certain things, and accept that and see that and start to change. It's different though when it's about somebody else, when it's about a different group. So there's that thought. But I still do believe that it's 2021, and I think we have a greater responsibility in terms of the racial narratives. It's really important that we, how do I say this? Especially for material that is in schools and with children, because children need to see themselves, and especially for Black children, when most of the narrative has said you're less than, then it needs to change, because children are very much affected by it today, up to now. So I'm not sure I have a definitive view on whether cancel culture could kill creativity.
I think it can, and I think it is in a lot of ways, but maybe not. I did an interview not long ago with a girl who's from where's she from? Iran. Sorry, she's from Iran. And she was telling me, like, prior to the Iranian Revolution, they were reasonably, liberal in a lot of ways. And then, of course, they had the revolution and everything becomes very conservative. And she was and so I thought she was going to take the view that was actually a bad thing. And her point was it actually forced artists to be more creative with their art in order to get their message out. And so by a lot of that behavior, in essence, being canceled by the conservative government, artists have to come up with more interesting and unique ways of getting messages out, and so could it be now that we're leading into that, where, so you're not going to get really a good message from Hollywood, right? They're going to make cookie cutter films that are designed not to offend anyone. But will we now see other artists being more creative and getting messages out, in regards to topics such as, Black Lives Matter and all this other kind of stuff, that then, gets the message to us via a less direct, but better method. So yes, cancel culture is canceling creativity, but it also is potentially forcing creatives to be more creative in how they get their message out.
I think that's so interesting that she said that. And I think this goes back to what to the activism aspect as well, because, it's not like for many artists in those contexts, it's not like the art is being exhibited in a gallery. Oh my gosh, this is, stuff that needs to get out there, and the messages need to get out there, right? And so, absolutely, when you think of it in that, well, when I'm thinking of it right now in that sense, what is the mechanism, or what is cancel culture doing? It's saying we're not going to listen to you, or you don't have a platform anymore because of that in the past, or because of this we disagree. Basically, we disagree with you. And in countries where there are these absolute extremes, that is what that's the major dynamic. So that sense of going against. I think, I just feel that I hope that it does lead to more creativity, like the artist from Iran was saying.
Hopefully it doesn't lead to people being too scared to say what they have to say. I know Kevin knows this because we talked about it in one of our previous episodes, to where I feel concerned about being canceled for something I've said or something I unintentionally say because I, do podcasts, I write, I do all this stuff, and I'm reasonably open with what I say. And I know people are offended constantly at pretty much anything. And so I certainly have that fear. And I check what I say much more now than I did, say, maybe 20 years ago. And to whereas before I would view it as just kind of my opinion and be a discussion. Now I think, okay, I might say this as my opinion, or who's going to be offended by it? Because I know it'll offend somebody. And then how is their offense by what I just said going to negative impact me in some way? And then I then often won't say and I've edited stuff out of this podcast. We did one, and I'll kind of reference. I made a joke about Ireland because I lived in Ireland for 6 years.
Yeah,
you knew that was where I was getting for. Yeah, so I made a joke about Ireland, which was funny, and I think my Irish friends would get the joke, right? But anybody who doesn't know me would be like, well, that's really offensive towards Irish people, right? And so I cut that completely out because I knew
get in the bin, Milo.
Exactly. so I cut it completely out because I knew people would be offended by it. So I'm in essence editing myself out of fear of the consequences that are going to happen to me.
Which kind of relates to a little bit to what I touched on earlier about the kind of the Teen Vogue editor, Lexi McCammond, different set of tweets, but actually that kind of historic things that you've done and said, like you say, you're now obviously you're very aware of what you're doing, but like you say, you're actually having to edit the things that you're saying as well.
You guys have got me thinking about something. What you were saying about editing and being, thinking of how it is received, perceived, and all of that. So for me, and I think I mentioned this earlier, so one of my challenges has been that some of my stuff is about topics that my family is not comfortable with, to the point where I know that and have been, I've put stuff out that people find hurtful. Not that was my intention. No, that was not my intention. My intention was to address an issue that I think is so rife in so many homes, right? And so what I was getting at was, I think I spent most of my life as an artist creating stuff and not putting it out, knowing what the impact would be, and reaching a point of the truth is the truth. And I have a responsibility as a survivor. I have a responsibility to children. I have a responsibility to protect children. And so I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to accept those consequences. Now, so I think as artists, yes, okay, we what we put out could be hurtful and offensive to somebody. Yet, if truth hurts, right? It's not to say that we're doing something to hurt people, but to accept where we've been wrong is a painful thing, and which is why most people tend to hold on to being right when they're wrong. But
well, speaking of art and performance, why don't we jump into your last performance piece for us?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Wait, I think give me a second. I need to just check that I have it. All right, so I have two short pieces here. The first one is a poem and a self-portrait, and it's about reclaiming the child, which I created the artwork last August, and the poem was, I think, in early March. And then what I follow that with is another short. They're both very short pieces. Yeah, the second one is, I guess, a continuation or the next step that followed after naming myself as a survivor of childhood sexual trauma and accepting that I am responsible for the child within me, that there's a woman here too who has had fears of intimacy and is honest about that. So yeah, that's what the pieces are about. With me, I found life there. Coffins are meant to hold the dead, where bones and skin turn to dust. Yet I found life there, in coffin where child had died, and lived. Although I left and went far away, seeking, searching, hoping, I found life there in the place that I loathed, too ashamed to say, this is me. When coffins are closed, they're not meant to reopen. Who wants to see loved ones decomposing? Yet I found life there when I opened the lid and said, I'm here now. I won't leave you. Although I judged and wished you away, you in coffin, you were always my undoing. Undoing of lies and the shame of existence. You live. We live. I live. Come lie with me. Come lie with me like mist. Come lie with me like fire. Come lie with me in love. Come lie with me with desire. Where I was closed, I am now open. Where I was lost, I am now found. Where I was wounded, I am now healing. Where I was afraid to go, I am now bound. So lie with me in sunlight, and lie with me under the moon. Come lie with me forever. Come lie with me, please, soon.
I had to unmute myself. I started applauding and then realized I was still muted. Do you have a book of poetry out, Juanita? Because just those two pieces so far are fantastic. And if you had a book of poetry out, I would absolutely get it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Because I really love the like the illustrations there as well. Like I think they're amazing. And this was the reason why I thought Juanita was actually an illustrator. I was like, the way that that's all put together there as well. As Milo says, if you had like a book, I would certainly.
Yeah, I mean
buy that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I've been so to answer your question, I hope to soon. So I've been putting my work together into collections and talking to publishers who.
I'm sure it's hard to get a book of poetry published. I would imagine because I know a guy I know did a kind of like a self-help type advice book, and it was really well written. I read it, but because he wasn't a known name, he didn't have a TV show or anything, and so no publishers wanted it. And so I'd imagine it's probably very similar to poetry because it's such a niche market that if you're a known, poet or whatever, they're like, yeah. But if you're not as well known, it's probably harder to get a publisher, I would imagine.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, like I said, my first open mic was in January. I'm really new to sharing my work, and at the same time, I have tons because I'm just
from a purely performance point of view, you would not. I mean, and to be honest, going forward, my only tip would be don't even mention that you've not done much before, because the way that you present through is like you've been doing it for years online. I'm sure you've obviously presented in the past as a teacher and things, but in terms of being kind of intimidated or whatever by the whole kind of showcasing that online or to other people. I mean, personally, I would not say that when I've seen your stuff now, the 2 or 3 times now. I mean, that is, I wouldn't say that I'm not looking at that going, oh, there's. I know people that present stuff and have done hundreds of stuff, and they make absolute, tons of kind of technical cock-ups or whatever, and you kind of just go straight in and you're there, So yeah, going forward, definitely just go with it, and you're great. To be fair.
So Kev, yes, I've been a school teacher, and I've been, I've been extremely misconfident when it comes to, doing stuff in terms of all of that, and because it's the nature of it, I think. When it's my stuff, this is my stuff, it's different. It's different. And I'm a bag of nerves. However, I don't know, people, I've had some interesting comments. Somebody asked me a few weeks ago, are you an actress? Like, no, I'm not an actress. I'm just like this. This is me.
Well, because you seem very, I think it's, because you seem very comfortable, presenting, which is probably why.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good thing in some respects, because, like I say, the way that you come across within, like I just mentioned, within your kind of presenting of your material is, as professional as anything, really. I mean, much better than that I could ever be. Here's my kind of self-deprecation moment. No, but fantastic. Seriously. Yeah.
But, I think that, and this is why I was uncomfortable about doing it before, because it's, I just feel so plugged into whatever that is. I'm just feeling it. That's all that I'm doing. And that's all that there is. And I'm sharing that. And I don't know how to not feel it. Sorry, does that make sense?
No, I mean, it just makes, the thing is, even though it is believable because you're sharing your own personal stuff, it just makes it even more believable anyway. No one could kind of doubt what you're putting out there. They could just be like, wow, this is really engaging. And obviously for a lot of people, very, very relatable. But talking about presenting and stuff, we are going to go and move on to like our final kind of little kind of mini feature thing, which is where you get an opportunity to turn the tables. We've been asking you questions and whatnot, and you get a chance now to ask Milo. So this is our Ask an American feature. So take it away.
Yay!
Yay!
So, Milo.
Milo's most favorite part of the show.
So, Milo, I mentioned earlier that I love cheese, and I also mentioned that I love trees.
Mm-hmm. And paint cheese and trees.
Ooh, I just had an idea of painting with cheese.
There
my
you go.
God.
Ooh, they're smart.
Oh no, that's a system.
Trees by cheese. There you go.
So my question for you is, where and when last did you meet a remarkable tree?
When did I last meet a remarkable cheese?
Not trees!
Trees! Boy, okay, I guess we could talk about trees if you really want.
When last did you meet a remarkable tree? And that's, yes, so that could be in Seattle, Dublin, or London. And it's a tree that...
A tree, like not a cheese, a tree.
Yeah, not a cheese tree,
okay.
with
a tree made of cheese.
Plastic cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of a cheese harvest.
That invited you to look up.
Okay.
And breathe deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Just a tree.
A tree.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. What comes to mind first? The first thing that pops into my head is probably going to be, I did a road trip. So this is the most recent. I'm sure there's probably more recent, but this is the first thing that pops into my head is the redwood forest in California, driving through that, because they're just massive. Like
you've been there.
Yes. I mean, they're so large you could, cut a hole and drive through them. And
one of my sisters has been, and I can't personally, fathom the size because I've not been stood. I've seen pictures and things, but I mean,
it's utterly remarkable. They're located. They're in the right, perfect position to where they're getting the weather coming off of the ocean, and then so they're just these and they're straight and tall and just massive, and it's really utterly beautiful. So that's certainly not the most recent, but that's the first thing that pops into my head when you ask that question.
Was that in Yosemite or was that in Yellowstone?
Oh, Yellowstone. Yellowstone has interesting dead trees. So they've got a lot of when they die and they get calcium in them, they become petrified. There we go. Yeah,
petrified. Yeah.
So there's a lot of really cool old petrified trees in Yellowstone that are really interesting seeing. But for me with Yellowstone, it was all about the hot springs. They're just so clear and so beautiful that you really want to touch them. And you can't because you would burn your skin off. And I'm surprised how that they actually do let you kind of walk right up to them in a lot of places and just get real close and look into this just crystal clear water that I can't imagine that a parent could not have their child uncontrolled when they're there, because I imagine as a child you would literally just want to like stick your hands in this beautiful thing, and so a parent would have to be constantly controlled. That's what I think of when I think of Yellowstone. But
wow.
Trees, yeah.
In terms of trees, the redwoods would be the
wow.
Yeah, here we did a road trip up to Scotland a couple of years ago, and it was really lovely. There was a lot of lovely forestry there and just the greenery and stuff like that. Ireland, unfortunately, they've chopped down all of the trees and have, obviously they're regrowing them now, but they don't have that kind of aged look to them in a lot of places. Yeah. And so Scotland here would probably be what I've seen.
Yeah, there's a good chunk of places in England and Scotland and probably Wales as well, actually, where there's, some really, really old, gnarly.
So to our audience here, the reason why I'm always getting stuck being asked the question here is Kev works with our excellent guests and finds them and puts a lot of like pre-work into the show. And so I don't meet our guest until we actually start recording, which is why the question always gets asked to me. But I'm going to put it on the fly here, and I'm going to call an American asks a British person a question, and or ask a Brit. Well, I'll call it for short. And so, in recent news, why was Prince Philip always considered a prince and not a king if he married a queen?
You
can help him if he needs help on this. But
I am, because I am in no way a royalist. You may well guess that. Although I've got Henry VIII kind of.
You got the beard going, you're working on it.
Pushing that way.
Yeah.
I think it's something to do with kind of like consorts within the whole royal setup. People are going to watch this. All kind of 20 people are going to watch this and go and go. Nah, that guy's talking up to me.
You should be ashamed to call yourself an Englishman.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Or proud.
Yeah, there you go.
I should be kind of exported away. Just literally that's it. Take him away, banish him from the kingdom of UK or whatever we want to call it. I can't really give you a straight answer on that. It's more, but I think it is down the lines of to do with consorts and the bloodline as well. So I think the Queen is from that main branch, as it were. So she gets that. But it's weird because obviously years and years ago, you could only, like now they've changed it in the monarchy where, so say if, I think, so next in line to the heir of the throne after Prince Charles will be William, William and Kate. So, but they did change it that if their firstborn was a daughter, so William and Kate, had they had a daughter, she could have become queen. She wouldn't have had to marry, someone else within the royal line.
So when William becomes a king, will she become a queen? Or will she still be considered a princess or something like that in the way Philip is a prince?
So she would become queen consort, as it were. Mm-hmm. So like she wouldn't be the actual queen because he would take the ruling or the leading rule or whatever. So he'd become king, she'd just be queen consort. I think that's what they call it. But their child, had their first child been a female or whatever, then she would have then automatically become queen, and there wouldn't it wouldn't have mattered. It used to be, no, it would be say they had 3 daughters, and then like years ago it's like, no, you've got to produce a male because you've got to produce a male heir. Now all that would be bypassed, so it would just be like, okay, you've got your 4th child's a male, but your first 3 were female, so the first female born, and that's fine.
Okay.
They can queen. But that's the thing that they changed. There was no like overriding the females, as it were, for them to just then choose the male offspring. But yeah, in terms of Prince Philip, I don't know, because to be honest, our royal family is about as, this is my own opinion, the royal family is about as English as, I don't know, cheese it.
Okay.
There's very, and yet then you get, people that are very kind of, that try to make out that they're very patriotic or whatever, and they have no recognition of the royal family being, I think they're just like this kind of English, this pure English bloodline or some bull, but no. But yeah, the Prince Philip.
Milo, was your question answered?
Not really. I mean, no. I think he was in the ballpark, but certainly I don't think he. I'm sure. Yeah, there's somebody.
Sorry, Kev.
Clearly, yeah.
Just Google is your friend, or your preferred search engine of choice.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to bing it to everybody.
I'm going to duck go it.
Duck go it. There we go. I'm going to duck go. Let's okay. All right.
So yeah, I couldn't answer that.
That's okay.
But what we can kind of now close with I'm just going to give it a kind of generalizing, final thought from all of you. So yeah, Juanita, in terms of the whole cancelling, removing Dr. Seuss, what would you say your final kind of thoughts are on that and the overriding subject and questions?
I think that this, as well as all the big events recently relating to race, opportunities to take bigger, bolder, braver steps towards the truth. Essentially, that's what I think.
That was good. Cool. That was very dramatic in the delivery. I liked it.
Yeah, very poignant, very, very concise as well. So Milo, yourself on the matter?
Yeah, I mean, I in regards to the whole pulling it off the shelf, I think I kind of said it that one. I'm not a huge fan of the idea, but the flip side of that is it has gotten people talking about it. So, in a way, maybe I don't know if that was their intent when they pulled the books. I think it was just they were worried about future cancel culture going after them. But the unintended intent is that people have been having discussions like ours tonight, which I think is for the benefit or for the good.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think my main takeaway really is more that kind of opportunity to kind of learn and listen to the people that matter when it comes to these kind of subjects as well, because I think we can only kind of move forward and have a broader, wider opinion, like you say, that kind of circle, as it were, widening that and it just pure. Yeah, my takeaway is I've learned that you need to be able to listen to more people rather than just holding an individual opinion about it and kind of including as many people as possible. But
could we start a new hashtag that's cancel culture? So
I reckon there's a space for that.
Yeah, that's the one I want to start. All right. Thank you so much for letting us monopolize your time, Juanita. Last question, we promise, which is, of course, if people want to find you or any works that you're working on that you want to make people aware of, social medias, like that kind of stuff. Is he on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok?
No, not on TikTok. I am on Instagram.
It's my favorite one.
I think it's just Juanita _Ray1. I think that's my Instagram. I guess.
Have you got an upcoming event? Anything that you're going to be in that people can kind of tune into?
Oh yeah, I'm actually doing a feature set at Blot from the Blue at the end of May.
So what is it called?
Blot from the Blue.
Blot
so
from the Blue?
Is, I believe, like a blot from the Blue is actually Finn that we had on a few weeks back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's the show
that's
that he
his,
runs.
That's his show. Okay.
Yes. So
excellent.
At the end of May, I'm the special guest, I think.
Sure. Do you know the date?
I think it's the 30th of May. There are a couple of other, possibilities, but nothing's been fixed. There's another one. Also, the end of May. I think the 29th of May. Guest artist on the Duke Special Gramophone Club, and that's a Belfast-based artist, and I'm going to be doing some spoken word music stuff.
Are these, and is that virtual?
Both are virtual, yes.
Okay. Dukes?
Yeah, I was going to say, because some more, we're going to start, again, we're going to get people start saying that actually, these events that I'm doing are, real ones, like we said before, what's a gig, kind of thing. It's actually going to events and participating in them. And so,
are you looking to do live gigs when they open up? Since I know it's just kind of, you've mostly just been doing virtual now, but in front of that crowd and.
Yeah, I am. I'm terrified. I know that I've been extremely lucky and in that I've kind of stepped onto the performance stage in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Right here. So it's been very safe and it's been good for me because I know that I'm feeling a lot more confident. I think it's mostly that I know that I'm a bag of nerves and I can navigate that bag of nerves. So that's not going to go away, right? But I've had enough opportunities to step into it, and so yes, I really am looking forward to being an absolute wreck on a stage live sometime soon.
All right.
I mean, it's great. It's great preparation. Really, is one way to look at it. It's just that all this online stuff is just fantastic prep. Really, you can't replicate it fully, but it can at least get you kind of literally prepared, ready for an actual live show. So I can't wait. If anyone wants to book me, I can't wait.
Should that happen? Yeah.
To actually start. Yeah. It's like still waiting. Yeah, it's like still waiting.
Sorry, Kev. Let's wrap this up. Juanita, we have monopolized way too much of your time, but it was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. You're super fascinating. And I loved your poetry. I really, really did. If I didn't, I would just say thank you. And that was nice. So that's how you know. So absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for taking part. And you did have a lot to say on the matter, as it were. So, Thanks very much.
Yes, I did.
Very educational too. Yeah, that's true. But because you brought a very interesting point of view to the conversation, so I think that's why we're doing these. So I think that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. So it's appreciated.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I really enjoyed it and. Lovely getting to hang out with you two.